So let's talk about, in my experience, what are the main things you need to figure out and be able to handle and do sustainably to live self-sufficiently off-grid. Before I get into this, because a lot of people might try to show up and say, well, that's not off-grid, this is off-grid, and this is how you do it. There's different definitions and variations of off-grid. Um, to me, some of them sort of escape the point. The point to me is to be undependent, non-dependent on all of it: electricity, um, things you buy at stores, so-called medicine in society, all of it. Okay. If you can sustain yourself without anything you have to buy from the system, to me, you've achieved off-grid self-sufficiency. If you can sustain that perpetually. Now, of course, there's no guarantees. I mean, an asteroid or a hurricane could just wipe you off the face of the planet. I'm not saying that anything is 100% bulletproof, but I'm saying that if you have the skills and you've developed the lifestyle and the functional systems necessary to sustain life potentially indefinitely, and not just struggling just to get by, but it's actually a good lifestyle, now you have something that I call off-grid self-sufficiency. So let's talk about some of the main things: skills, as well as decisions, as well as assets you need to figure out, priorities, understandings. Starting with the location, because you could have all the skills in the world, but if you try to do an off-grid self-sufficient homestead on the wrong piece of land, it's just impossible. Now, for me, from early on, this meant um, going to the tropics. Not only because I love the tropics since I was a little child, I'd watch, countless nature videos on jungle life and stuff, but also because if you're going to grow all your own food, you need to do it somewhere where nature grows it for you, as long as you do your due diligence, rather than living somewhere colder where the only way I can imagine doing it involves a lot of machines and man-made equipment to sustain life in places that don't naturally sustain it. And to me, you're fighting an impossible uphill battle that way. Not necessarily impossible, but close. Because if the whole point of off-grid self-sufficiency is not to be dependent on the system, then how are you doing that when you have a bunch of systems built with parts and machinery and materials you get from society, and that's the only way to sustain it? If you can't sustain your off-grid homestead with nature's materials from your own land, again, you don't really have a sustainable homestead. So it's not sustainable off-grid self-sufficiency. To me, it doesn't count if you're self-sufficient for a little while or off-grid, like I didn't have a computer electricity for a month, so I'm off-grid. Like, the whole point to me is sustainability and functionality and thriving, not just sort of surviving. So location. When we moved to the tropics, we had to buy one house to live in for a while that was not ideal. So we bought something small. We learned a lot. We practiced a lot of our skills. And when the time was right and we found it, we bought our real property. And the first thing that attracted me to this property was the spring coming out of the mountain, natural spring water. To me, that's the single most important element to procure a proper, good, sustainable source of in order to have the longevity of true sustainability. So, in other words, if somebody controls your water supply, or somebody's upstream from it technically that can turn it on and off or poison it, in a world like this with so many corrupt agendas and confusions and dehumanizing things going on, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to complete failure with that one aspect alone. Without water, you're doomed. With poison water, you're doomed. Can't be done that way. So having a hidden mountain spring that nobody could even find unless they knew where to look, in the jungle, is a really, really precious commodity. And I noticed that as soon as I started drinking that water, which is no doubt crystal charged by all sorts of crystals inside the mountain where it comes from, my teeth started regenerating. I started feeling better in a lot of ways. There's nothing like naturally crystal charged, magnetized, you know, electromagnetically awesome water with trace minerals. It's nothing like that. So water source. Now shelter. Um, what kind of shelter? Where I live, it makes most sense to build things out of things that don't decompose from water. So there's some different ideas around that. I mean, there's even PVC houses these days that I find somewhat interesting. But in our case, we have a rebar brick type design, which is really good. Our house has been where it is for 70 years or something, and nothing's wrong with it. No cracks, no rot, nothing. Um, so shelter, because as a human, you're going to need it. It gets too hot here. There's too many insects biting you. You can't just hang out outside and live on the ground. Not in the real jungle. It's not like you think. It's not like, you know, when you see tropical terrain on TV, it's so beautiful. You just think, oh, I just want to go there and just be one with nature and walk around naked, and, you know, everything will just be easy and beautiful. It's nothing like that. The real jungle will eat you alive constantly. So shelter, clothing, these are important. What are you going to do for clothing if there's no more grid? There's nowhere to buy stuff. You have to have some kind of clothing making skills for true sustainability, and the necessary hand tools to do it with, and backups for those hand tools, and backups for your backups. You have to be way ahead on all of this. You have to have all the hand tools you need, multiple copies to work the land, to shape the land, to encourage the land, to make all the food sources you need for you and your supportive ally animals. So food and medicine, you're going to need to grow all the necessary micro and macronutrients throughout the year, not just seasonal stuff. You're going to want to eat more than just in a season here and there. So you're going to you're going to have to get year-round food supply sustainably working on your homestead to where you have all the macro and micronutrients you need. And medicine, you need to have at least one source of natural antibiotics. Here we grow a lot of oregano for the oregano oil. It's very potent and functional, good antibiotic. If I was in a more northern climate, I'd be using garlic. It doesn't hurt to have a few types of antibiotics, but at least one. And this brings me really to probably, to me, the single most important thing that people completely overlook, even good off-grid homesteaders, and that is health and vitality. If you don't have a bulletproof immune system, guys, I would have literally died twice already since moving to the tropics from infections that I got that ravaged me. I'm talking no eating, no sleeping for 7 days and losing 30 pounds of lean mass, on fire with a fever, hallucinating, existing in like 4 different worlds at the same time. And I refuse to go to the hospital because I'll beat it or die trying. I'm not going to go take antibiotics and be completely reset with no immune system. Then I really wouldn't make it out here probably. But I have the strongest immune system of anybody I've met, and I barely survived a couple things because I do expose myself to more things than others in a variety of ways. But there are people who try not to expose themselves of things and end up getting a staph infection that if they don't get medical intervention, they die. That's just from a scratch on your finger, guys. I have open wounds on my hands, feet, legs, arms all the time because of the way I live. I don't even wash them. I mean, I wash my hands when I go in the house finally, but all day long I don't wash these things. And I don't get infections or anything. No staph infections, no swelling, no bad reactions. But I've had cuts and scrapes from all sorts of objects my whole life because of the way I've lived, so it prepped me. But I was warned before coming here, you get so much as a scratch there, you're going to have to go to the hospital because of the staph infections and stuff. Because this place is crawling with bacteria. Crawling. Everything you see here is covered in bacteria. Multiple types of bacteria. So, immune system, heat tolerance, endurance, mental stability, emotional stability. I mean, at some point we got to get into the philosophy of life, the spiritual aspect. Let me slow down a little and try to keep it a little more organized. We've talked a bit about the necessity of long-term ability to shelter and clothe yourself, a water source that's good water that you're in control of, that isn't vulnerable to someone taking it away or poisoning it. The ability to grow all your own food and medicine year round and be expanding upon those things as you go. So you can feed yourself and your animals. We have chickens and ducks. They make some of our food. We have to feed them well and take care of them and use natural medicines on them. Um, you need the skills to build the facilities for those animals in some cases. I repurposed a lot of things I found thrown away on the side of the road here and there, things that other people consider trash that are totally legit materials. And I just collect it all up and repurpose things and build things. Because if I had to go to, say, Home Depot or something and buy all the parts I need to build chicken houses and garden boxes and this and that and the other, I'd have been broke a long time ago and failed at this. I don't know how many thousands of dollars I've saved just repurposing materials that other people throw on the side of the road somewhere because they don't know what to do with it. And I live in a sort of a third world environment where the trash hauling is outdated and not up to snuff, and some people can't even get their garbage hauled. So a lot of people will just take it to some backcountry road, truckloads of it, and just throw it somewhere, you know. And I look through that stuff. I'm a welder, so I collect metal pieces. I, I'm a carpenter by trade, also to some degree. So I collect wood. I collect, rope, wire, nails, screws, plastic, PVC pipes. I got to maintain our gravity flow spring water system here. So a little bit of plumbing skill. Concrete work pays off where I am, and I have that in my background too. I've had so many different trades, and I use all of them now. So building and repair for houses and vehicles, clothing, making clothing, these kinds of skills, very useful, very practical, very real. It's the basics, guys. You have to master the basics. And the other thing is, you have to be good at all this. If you're self-sufficient and off-grid, especially where I live, there is no government help anyway when you need it. I know from experience, not myself, but those that I've helped, that if you have a medical emergency, good luck. Even if somebody rushes you to a hospital, it'll be weeks, maybe months before you get what you need. So I really am in a place where self-sufficiency is the only way to go, the way I see it. And that suits me fine. The government doesn't help anybody, but the government isn't in the way either. Privacy, let's talk about that. Where I live, there's a lot of privacy, and that's necessary because everything I do is unique. And human beings have been so conditioned to suspect and fear and hate and attack and interfere with anything anybody's doing that's not the norm. And there's a lot of people that are just sitting around collecting government assistance, watching what others do, and they will meddle. They will meddle in your life. So I need to live far away from people so I can do what I'm doing without being asked stupid questions, without people interfering and trying to tell me not to, and trying to interfere with who I am and trying to stop me from doing what I do, even though they have no clue what that is. I've dealt with that pattern with humans my whole life, and it's very real. So for me, privacy is important. I have neighbors nearby enough that I can walk to them if I need to, but none of us are in each other's business or in each other's way, and I like it that way. I don't interfere with what my neighbors do. Live your life as you see fit. You know, you're on your own land. Do as you choose. I'm not nosy, but a lot of people are. I'm way too busy to be nosy, and I can't imagine the kind of boredom or lack of creativity or whatever it is that causes so many people to be that way, but they are. So privacy, space, privacy and space. So you can do what you do, build what you build. If I'm having a bad day, I can go outside and scream at the top of my lungs and kick a tree and have a tantrum, and the cops don't show up. I used to live in an apartment in a city, and every time I raised my voice about something, some neighbor reported me for something. That's just, I can't live like that. So anyway, um, what else? I mentioned building with nature materials, okay? Now, while the grid still functions, while society's still there, yes, I still buy things. I buy concrete. I buy, you know, things that are nice when you can get your hands on them to fortify this or build that. But I've already got plan B and plan C and everything sorted out. And if there are no more of those things to do, I've got so much bamboo on this property and other types of wood, I can build the basic kind of structures. I can repair the basic kind of things. I can use rocks to build and hold a lot of things in place. I already do it. I build rock gardens and barriers and things that hold up roadways so they don't wash out, all out of natural materials, okay? So you can sustain what you need. Rocks are my friends. Trees are my friends. I have to clear a lot of trees that are not food trees just to make more room for food trees anyway. You guys see me work out with a lot of those materials, but also eventually those logs and different things, they all become part of something. Build a garden box or a barrier or change the contour of the land somewhere so water runs a different direction. They're all useful. Nature provides so much here. Um, like we cook on banana leaves instead of wax paper. You know what I'm saying? Like you learn to use the things around you. We got shampoo ginger plants that make shampoo right next to our outdoor shower. A lot of nifty stuff like that. So learning to use what's around you and formulating your plan to where if there's no society and we got to lay low because it's just Mad Max apocalypse out there, we can just quietly live right off the land here as long as we need to for the true madness to blow over. Quietly, invisibly, you know. Fire starting materials. Now, I don't normally make outdoor fires here, but I can and I have. And having lots of extra matches and lighters and stuff stockpiled is then you have the power of fire, one of the four elements. That's super important. Um, medical things, bandages and wraps and things like that. It makes sense to stock up on. When you're starting out on a homestead and you don't have all your food systems, a lot of canned foods would make sense, wouldn't it? Oh, okay. So, what else? What else we get into? I wrote myself some notes here to remind myself some things. Let's talk about electricity. You don't have to have electricity where I live to live. You don't. But it's a wonderful convenience and we love the benefits of it. So we had to invest in a solar system because the part of the world I live in, the power grid's 50 years outdated and it'll just destroy all your electronic appliances over and over. Regardless of what you pay for electricity here, it's bad electricity and it'll eat up all your devices and cost you a lot more. I lost a very expensive computer that way, lots of cook stoves, refrigerators, all kinds of stuff, before we just went for the big investment in solar, which cost a lot more than I want to talk about, but that was the only really way to roll with electricity where I live. So if you're like a single guy and you really want to be hardcore or cool or something, you can definitely live without electricity here. You don't require heat. How many of you live in a place in the world where you will freeze to death if there isn't heat in the winter? How is that sustainable without a grid? You know, what's your food going to be? If you can't grow enough in the hard frozen ground and hardly anything grows there, what's your food going to be? Some of you say, well, I got cattle. Listen, in an apocalyptic situation, everybody's going to come for your cattle, and they're just going to get you out of the way to take them. You don't even want to be a target like that. That is not a survival thing, okay? That just makes you a big target. You have to think realistically about what happens when the S really hits the F, the fan, okay? You got to get real. You got to see it all way down the road before it happens, and not everybody can do that. So hopefully some of these hints help for those that are serious about potentially getting life sovereignty, which is probably one of the greatest single things a person or a family could do in the world the way it is now, but not easy. Because if you can't handle every aspect of this sustainably, you'll fall. And then where are you going to be? In a third world place, homeless, with no help, I mean, you got to be real about these things. So this is why I don't carelessly, casually act like, oh yeah, off-grid life, you're just living in paradise and everything's easy. No, not at all. Not at all. I hit the ground running and move like lightning all day, every day for the most part. Occasionally I slow down because I have to, and we're a long ways from having things where I want them, but we make progress all the time. We could literally sustain ourselves now if there was nowhere to go to buy anything, okay? That's a big step, but it can get a lot better. And don't stop. That's more advice. Don't go, well, I think I have just enough food and just enough materials that I could probably make it pretty well for a while if there was, no society anymore. Don't stop there. Aim for abundance. Aim for so much abundance you couldn't begin to use what grows on your own land. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with nature's abundance? If trees are dropping fruit everywhere, it's just becoming better dirt. It's just improving the jungle, and you're helping in that process. Don't be afraid to overdo it, in other words. There's nothing wrong with having too much when it comes down to it, okay? And you might even be able to help some neighbors if you can trust them, if times get that tough. Whereas you'll be a supply of nothing, and you'll have nothing, and in a world of people that have nothing, when the S hits the fan, otherwise. Be a source of something good, but don't be naive. Don't brag about it. If you're serious about off-grid long-term sustainability, don't brag about what you have. Don't flash it or show it or try to impress people with it, because they'll all come for you, because they all know who has that stuff when times get tough. Okay? Don't do that to yourself. Walk softly and carry a whole lot of fruit. Vegetables, herbs, and awesome chicken and duck eggs. That's what I'm saying. And a little more about the big topic of, let's say, spirituality, consciousness, family, relationships. Here's a big thing, guys. Now, if you're a single guy or single female, which, more power to you, but that's one thing. That's all about your relationship with yourself, your life philosophy. Where do you go when things don't work out and everything hits the fan? Do you have a relationship with God? Do you have the potential to regenerate when things get their worst, or are you going to implode on yourself? Furthermore, when you're in a family or some kind of partnership or group, what are the dynamics? Do you really know everybody well enough there? Or are some of them imposters and pretenders and narcissists that are there to manipulate and live off of you and your energy? Because if you get out in the middle of nowhere with somebody like that, you're all in big trouble. You're either going to have to identify them and get rid of them, which is going to be ugly, or you're going to keep not identifying and not seeing what you don't want to see until it costs everybody everything. There's a lot of sneaky people in the world who are not who they pretend to be, guys. They know all the right words. They practice manipulating. They practice appearances their whole life, but they are vampiring and they are lying. And their idea of love is not love, okay? This is a big warning to me. Don't go out in the middle of nowhere and take on the biggest kind of thing, creating a complete life that you're completely sovereign, all the systems of it, so you're not dependent on any of the things you were raised and born to be dependent on, and you got a bad apple in the bunch. Ooh, not good. So my wife and I had the fortune of having gone through many hard things together and slowly learning to actually trust each other, which wasn't easy coming from the way the world conditioned us growing up, to put it lightly. And some of you know what I'm saying. Even when a person is truly a great ally for you, it can take a long time to learn to trust them, depending on what you've been through. But we had reached a point when I knew we were in dire need to get out of the system. Right before some things I predicted would happen happened, we left, we took the big jump, and we struck out together into an unknown world under tremendous pressure to make it work. It was not easy, and it's pushed us both to various limits, physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. But we can recover, and we can help each other, and we can redeem each other out of the lows that we sometimes fall into due to challenges, setbacks, frustrations, blockages, injustices, all the things that life can throw at you. So that relationship enables us. It's like 1 + 1 = many. Whereas if you come out here with the wrong person and they turn selfish on you out of fear or deviousness or dishonesty or whatever the issue is, you're in big trouble. Everybody's in big trouble. If there's one person in the group not putting in for the best of others, so this works for everybody, because they have different motives despite what they say, big trouble, okay? I got to emphasize that. I see that throwing the best laid plans to waste in a lot of cases, okay? There are people smart enough to have the skills. There are people experienced enough to have the practical abilities, the building, the adaptation, the hard work ethic, enough vitality, enough willpower, enough vision to do all the different things and learn all the different things you have to do along the way to make all this work. But what would be the chink in that armor? It would be the bad apple in the group that you don't realize is undermining you until they've destroyed the whole thing. And in their mind, ungrounded, narcissistic people, they always just believe some non-reality thing about how great they are anyway. So there's no reasoning with them and there's no changing that. There are certain people that will destroy it. So if you aren't sure what kind of relationship you're in, this could be a big deal. You need to really know. You need to really have a strong foundation with anybody you're going to try to do this with. A strong functional foundation. Preferably you've gone through some real hellish things together and you've found that it brings out the best in you for each other consistently. And that's brought you closer. If you have that, you do have what it takes. Okay. At least relationship wise, you have the necessary ingredients. Because there won't be a betrayal when things get truly hard. And you won't see somebody's true colors you never saw before when you get out in the middle of nowhere and things are different. And you won't have some strange nightmare unfold because you really know each other and you know you're in it for the best of all involved. Some people think they're in it for the best of all involved, but they don't actually help. They live in a delusion in their head and they're very lazy and helpless. And they just keep telling themselves stories about how their kind thoughts towards you are so supportive that's making a difference and they won't lift a finger to do any of the work. Okay, now that's not a narcissist. That's a whole different issue. That's kind of an unaware person that's sort of a leech without meaning to be. Those will stop you. Those will drag you down. There is no, when you go out to make life on your own by the sweat of your own brow, with your own mind and hands and heart and faith, there's no math that allows for someone who's just a drag, who doesn't contribute. It doesn't work that way. If you're not carrying at least your own weight plus more, you're not contributing to the group and you're not part of making this happen. Whatever other good qualities you have, you're going to cost everybody everything on a project like this. And usually people like that don't realize that's who and what they are. So it's difficult. If you're going to do this, you have to take on certain leadership roles where you assess whether the people you're setting out to do this with, it can really be done with them or not. You're going to have to filter out some. You're probably going to have to filter out a lot. There's a lot of people that try to invite themselves to come live with me. They don't even know me. They're from some other place in the world. It's some kid, usually, having some fantasy about some idealistic reality that he imagines, but doesn't know what it's like in reality. And it's not like he thinks at all. And about one day of hard work, if you even made it through that, that'd be the end of that dream. I've actually done that. Actually had sort of an internship one time, and about a half hour of hard work in the sun, those big dreams and goals about being a homesteader and a big man and a big this and that, they were over. They were done. Because it's much more real than you think in real life. The heat is incredibly humbling. The many types of insects that are stinging you and melting you with acid and sucking your blood and doing all this, very humbling. The terrain of the jungle tripping you constantly and making you struggle just to get a few feet, let alone build anything or change anything, very humbling. To say the least. So staying healthy day to day, not taking unnecessary risks. Now, this is hard for a guy like me. Back in society, I would go nuts and tear things off, and I always knew there was surgery there if I really needed it. Of course, at times when I really needed it, there wasn't because I didn't have any insurance. And then I ended up learning about miraculous healings, which is what was meant to occur during those times, which is more priceless. But anyway, there were a lot of risks I could afford to take at times when I had medical insurance, knowing there was surgery to reattach bones and tendons and stuff that I can't really afford to take now. Okay? So I take some calculated risks because I'm out in the jungle dropping gigantic trees that are attached to other gigantic trees, and I'm trying to figure out what's going to pull what in what direction when it goes. I have to climb a lot of trees for this and that. Every so often you grab a branch that looks alive, but it's not, and it just snaps right off. So you need to make sure that your other three digits have some kind of stability, what they're holding. Don't let go of one branch until you fully have another type thing. You have to move slower. You have to move more deliberate. You have to move more careful. There's all kinds of things that can stab holes in your feet when you just go stomping through the jungle. I got a friend nearby right now that got some metal stuck through his foot, and it swole so bad the circulation was cut off, and he got taken to emergency. And they put him on huge injectable doses of antibiotics for like a month now to save his life, I guess, from the infection. You know, that's another thing. Where I live, people have thrown so much stuff into the jungle they didn't know how to get rid of. There's a lot of dangerous objects, mostly near roadways, but sometimes I find stuff way out in the jungle where somebody meant to build something, but they never got around to it. And now there's all this rusty metal that'll just destroy you if you don't see it in time, and it goes right through your foot or your stomach or whatever. You're thrashing through the jungle and you collide with this rusty metal. Not to mention all the sharp sticks and natural objects, sharp rocks, things you can fall on. You have got to be aware. You have got to be present. The jungle does not allow for space cases living in their head, you know, replaying YouTube videos or video games, wandering around. You will get hurt bad or worse. You have got to be present. Now, that's the jungle. If you're trying to make a homestead in Kansas on a big flat field of grass, I can't even imagine that. And that's a whole different situation. But just speaking from my experience, in the tropics, which is where you have by far your best chance of nature actually supplying the energy to keep you warm enough to grow all your food and animals, etc. There are a lot of dangerous things. There are trees around here with spikes this long that are razor sharp. So you're moving through the jungle and without thinking of it, you even lean on one of those, it goes through your hand and it snaps off deep inside your hand. Guys, I had a thing the size of a toothpick this long, jammed from this part of my thumb, clear past both knuckles, down into this part of my thumb. And it was so deep I couldn't get it out. And I had to live with that pain for like 3.5 weeks before the swelling forced it out. Like this big pussy mess of stuff formed on my finger. And finally, eventually started to squeeze the end of it out enough I could get some pliers and pull this thing out. And I couldn't believe how long it was what I snapped off in my finger. And that was very, very painful. And it made it very hard to sleep or function in anything. And that's just one spike. You take a tumble in this jungle and you hit a tree like that and stick them in your body everywhere, a lot of people would die from the pain alone. And almost anyone would wish they were dead. You talk about beyond brutal. So you're out there, you know, thinking everything's nice, peaceful bird sounds. You make one wrong step and you are in a world of hurt, okay? The jungle is so busy and so complex and so dynamic. You have got to be aware and you have got to be present to have any chance of making it through one day and still being ready to go the next day. That's the other thing. If you get too hot around here, you get heat stroke or heat shock or something, you're useless, you're sick. A week goes by, you don't get anything done and you feel horrible. I learned that the hard way many times. One time I was on the ground staring at the sky for I don't know how long before I realized I was doing it because I had gotten so hot. I have no idea how much time passed. I don't know why I just laid down on my back and stared at the sky, but there was hardly any mental activity because my brain was so cooked. And I laid out there like that for a long time before I realized what is going on. I must have heat stroke. And then I went home and cooled off and I was all messed up for days. So over time, I developed the ability to sort of feel when I'm starting to get a bit heat nauseous or messed up or too slow. It's like a bad dream where no matter how hard you try, you can barely move. There's this feeling that comes on, and I know when to call it quits and to go cool off for a few hours so I can come back and do another round. You can't just come outside and work 12 hours hard labor in the hot sun. I don't care who you are. It's not going to happen. So what I'm trying to get at there is sustainably being able to make progress each day is more important than trying to do too much in one day and setting yourself back for a month or more. You learn to pace yourself. You learn to work at an appropriate pace with an appropriate caution for all the different things that can injure you or make you ill or set you back. Another thing is you have to accept that you're going to make mistakes and learn from them. But instead of spending $100,000 for some education for a PhD that you might or might not use, in this case, your education is through hard work and mistakes and failures and setbacks. This is how you're learning. Instead of paying money to some corporation, you're paying time and effort and energy and struggle to understand what works and what doesn't where you are. Because you can read a lot of things on paper in a book that are sound in theory, and for some people they work in some places, but you may find out it doesn't work quite like that where you are. Okay? Indecision and overthinking. We got a generation of people that got this disease now worse than anybody's ever had in known history. And this is a problem. Like my grandfather used to say, if you don't know what to do, and this guy was a genius who survived on his own since he was 9 years old working in coal mines and then learned how to rebuild machines and built a sawmill and did all kinds of things. He actually invented some things you wouldn't believe if I told you, so I'm not gonna. It sounds too outrageous. But anyway, he was really good with electricity and a bunch of different things. But he used to tell people, he told my dad, I remember my dad telling me this, that he'd say, when you got a project and you don't know what all that entails, and there's nobody there to walk you through it, there's no perfect set of instructions, but you need to do it. Just start doing something. Now, inevitably, you're going to make some mistakes, but those mistakes will show you what to do next. Okay, if that didn't work, that means I try this. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there thinking about it until you're dead. You're just going to go extinct because you didn't do anything on your homestead. You didn't make it happen. Guys, I've had to redo more stuff in the last 7 years than I could even. I mean, you don't even want to know the amount of labor and work that's been just learning the hard way. But if you keep going, it does pay off. If you observe why it didn't work, you come up with way better theories of what will. And pretty soon you narrow it down and you start discovering things that do work. Don't stop there. If you have another good theory, just because it's working doesn't mean you can't make it work better, more abundantly, more functional, more sustainable. There's always a way to improve it. So hear me now, you overthinkers that are stuck in your head all the time. When you don't know how to proceed or go about a project, just start doing something. And yes, you'll make mistakes. And from there, you'll understand how to redirect your sales. Let's try aiming this way more. And you'll start getting somewhere. But the longer you sit around overthinking it, afraid that if I can't do everything and it doesn't just all work out perfect the first time, I'm too scared to do it, you've given yourself sort of an unrealistic cowardice complex, really. That's not real. You can do it, but you're going to have to be willing to make the mistakes and observe them and learn from them and sustain your health and well-being and sanity and relationships and all these things at the same time. You're juggling. Off-grid life will give you ADHD if you didn't already have it. Fact. I can't walk from here a quarter mile in a different direction on the property without seeing 100 different things I need to improve on or fix on my way. And by the time I get where I was going, I have no idea what I was going there for because I just got involved in 10 projects, and you have to be skilled with that. You have to be able to multitask and handle many different hats and constantly change your plans. I head outside planning to do one thing and then I see what broke over here or which animal did what or something changes and I have to deal with it. Or something broke that day and I have to fix it. Or a neighbor in need calls me with who really needs help in the situation you're in, and I don't get to be home that day at all. And there's setbacks and there's being spread very thin because the more hats you're wearing, the less you get to work on any of those things in a given day, week, or month. So you're juggling priorities all the time. Okay, this didn't happen and I didn't get to do this. Here's where I am today. Here's where I'll be tomorrow. Maybe. What can I do? What can I progress on? What can I make better? What can I move forward into more abundance and functionality and sustainability? So plasticity and flexibility of consciousness and being able to handle infinite distractions, really, because like I say, life here involves so many different things. You never get to just focus on one thing. You don't get to be a widget like society taught you to be. Society wants everyone to be good at one thing. Why? Because you'll never change the world if you're only good at one thing. You'll never understand the bigger systems. You'll never see how things work together. You'll never even see what you're working for or serving. So people have been trained to be specialized in one thing, but real life, taking responsibility and sovereignty, it's going to do the opposite to you. You're going to have to learn to juggle everything. Not everything that exists in society, because society's full of false, artificial nonsense things that don't need to exist. But the primary things that do have to exist, water, shelter, food, relationship, ability to travel when needed, health, you know, purpose. These things, they're on you. They're on you. So, I have the great fortune of knowing that I'm well guided by the Creator. A lot of times I only see it retrospectively. Sometimes I can tell when it's happening. When I get in situations that I hate what's going on, I have learned through repetitive experience that there is a purpose in it. And so I'm not going to say I don't complain. I still gripe and complain sometimes, especially when I'm hot and bug bitten and everything's going wrong. I'll have a little tantrum, but I live in the middle of nowhere, so I can act like a baby when I want to without hurting society or my neighbors or something. And then I get over it, and eventually I see, okay, there was a purpose in how that didn't work out, because I ended up being forced to do this and learn this very useful thing that I'm going to be able to take advantage of in the future. So remember, if you do this, when things are setbacks, when things don't go how you like, that's you paying for your education. Instead of going into debt and being charged interest for the rest of your life to make some greedy rich person richer and greedier, you're just paying to learn reality from reality. And the less you resist it and get angry, and the quicker you can get over your frustration, the more you're able to use what you learn as you go and reuse it, repurpose it, and make things even better. Okay, this video is pretty long. Talked somewhat about location and privacy and water, the importance of water, shelter, food, sustainability, medicine, sustainability, clothing, sustainability, sanity, well-being, spiritual well-being, relationship sustainability. You need all these things. Safety, working in nature, or even working on your house. I mean, you go up a ladder wrong one day and fall through it and, hurt your leg or whatever. That's on you. Now nothing's getting done on the homestead. And if you hurt yourself so bad you need surgery where I live, uh, good luck, because you may be waiting a while to even get that surgery. And you'd be amazed the excuses even doctors can make to not help you in a place where nothing's really enforced. It makes people do their job. It's very different than what you're used to if you're coming from, say, the US or some first world place where everything's regulated by the system, and you come somewhere where it's not. You'll find out most people won't really do their job if they're not forced to, except for the rare special exceptions. So you're going to need tools for working on your own vehicles and housing, assuming you have vehicles. You may live in a situation where you don't need them, but house repair tools, lots of tools for working the land. Where I live, that means you got to get good with and have a lot of machetes, picks, shovels, axes. Those are kind of your basics. You use some hammers, you use this and that, but those are just as far as working the raw land. Rakes, shovels, machetes, hammers, axes, just basic hand tools, but you need the skills. Because again, when you're hot and tired and your brain's not working very well, your body gets sloppy. I've pulled a machete out of my own shin bone now. I don't even know how many times. Now, had it been an axe, things could have got a lot worse. So a lot of skill builds up over time, but you got to build it at a speed you can learn it without hospitalizing yourself. And a lot of people are, oh, yeah, I'm good with an axe. I'm good with a machete. Not when your feet slip out from under you in mid-swing and you chop right through something into yourself, Or not when your hands are so slippery with sweat and your brain's so hot that you hit something hard and it just bounces off and ricochets off all the trees and hits you in the face. These things happen easily in a place like this, and you can be going along just thinking, well, I'm just working in my backyard. It's a nice day. No problems here. And poke your eye out or something and have a problem. So in other words, again, when it comes to the actual doing of what you need to do in a homestead, self-sufficient, off-grid, self-reliant environment, presence. You have got to learn to be present. Even though, like I said, you're going to get ADHD. You're going to get ADHD because there's too many different things you have to do, and it's constantly changing. And things are jumping up the list of priorities one day that you didn't plan on. So even with ADHD, you're going to have to learn to be present with what you're doing. And this is not easy. But it's good skills to develop because those skills will help you with anything in life, anywhere you go. So nature, the dynamics of what it takes to really live with what's real instead of what's artificial, it trains you really well because it's an honest kind of training. It makes your mind, body, and spirit have to come together and work together better, which will serve you in anything in life. But there are many things that can stop you. There are many people that set out to go make their new homestead life in the tropics and go through something traumatic and give up and run back to the society they hate so much and just blue pill themselves because the red pill path kicked their booty so hard that it terrified them. Just be aware of that, guys. If you have any good questions, drop them in the thread below so I can clarify more on some of these things. But to me, that's an overview. Now, I actually have probably a simplified version of what it takes to live off-grid and self-sufficient. Most people, especially people that have been like Americanized, have so many crazy lifestyle requirements for what they think they need to have and how luxurious and nice they think they need it to be. They make it 10 to 20 times harder to actually live in an off-grid homestead type environment because they think they got to have power this and heated that and automated this and easier that and all these things they can't afford and all these things that aren't sustainable. And pretty soon it's like, why even call it a self-sufficient off-grid homestead? You just went way out in the middle of nowhere and recreated the same scenario you were coming from because you're stuck here. You know, there needs to be a lot of clarity on what the vision actually is and why. And then you can walk through the how. But it's going to be a walk of faith and endurance and strength and problem solving and flexibility, adaptation, stamina, fortitude, purpose. You need purpose to have all those things, or one of those things will burn out on you. Even if you're smart enough, you'll lose the will to keep fighting all the things you got to fight, keep doing all the things you got to do, and struggling. Especially if you're someone that needs external validation, because you're out here in the middle of nowhere working harder than 10 men and no humans are watching you. So if you're the kind of person that just lives on praises and nonsense from other human beings, you don't even have 1% of what it's going to take to do this. Just to be honest with you. Now, if you're someone who can get busy with nobody looking and really get some stuff done because you have a sense of purpose, you might have the right kind of gearing to do something like this.